Hello everyone. This video we are just going to go through a quick review of chapter 1, which is all about exponents. I hope you will find this useful because it's going to be a quick glance at the whole chapter, right? So I'll just concentrate on what are the important parts, and it really depends on the practice, like how much time you're giving on the different kinds of questions. So what, according to me, what's important, I have given the whole guide here. So let's start with revising the law of exponents, right? So this is the law of exponent. If you're multiplying two exponents, so you are going to add the value of the exponent. You are not going to just multiply x and y, rather you're going to add the exponents. So let me give you a quick example of how this would look if it was in numbers. For example, let a be a. If the exponent was 3 multiplied by the exponent, let it be 3, right? So the answer for this is going to be a 3 plus 2, which is going to give you an a to the power of 5. So that's why when you are multiplying exponents, you just need to add the power. Now, yes, we can even replace it with numbers instead of a. We can even say, for example, say if this is 2 to the power of 2 multiplied by 2 to the power of 4. Okay, so what's going to happen here is you're just going to add the exponent. So 2 plus 4, that's going to give you a 2 to the power of 6. Now what's 2 to the power of 6? 2 to the power of 6 is like 2 multiplied 2 multiplied 2 6 times, right? So finally you will simplify by finding 2 to the power of 6. I'm not writing it here because later on we will do it in detail. This is just an example of how you should solve. I'm just showing you that, right? So if you're dividing two exponents, that means you're going to subtract the value of the exponents. The base will be the same, all right? So if I take 3 to the power of, say 6 divided by 3 to the power of 4, so what you're going to do here is the base remains the same. You know, this is called the base, this is called the exponent. Now this is not a teaching video, it's just a review video. So in detail, I'm not going to explain anything here. So you're just going to subtract the value of the exponents. So the value is going to be 3 squared, which means 3 squared you can easily identify as 9. Now this doesn't mean 3 multiplied by 2. No, that's a wrong one. That this means 3 multiplied by 3. You're multiplying 3 2 times, which will give you an 9. Now this means you're going to multiply, you know that well, if the exponent is something like that. Now, are you going to multiply, add them here? You might think because you're multiplying them, we are going to add the exponents. No, you're not. You are simply going to multiply. You just treat this how a parenthesis should be treated. So here, you're going to just say 3 multiplied by 2, which is going to equal 4 to the power of 6. There's a difference between these questions and here, because here the base is same. That's why we are just adding the exponents. But here the base is a single one, but the power of 2 is outside the parenthesis. So we need to just multiply how we would normally multiply the parenthesis. Now anything to the power of 0 equals 1. Whether it is a number or a variable, anything to the power of 0 equals 1. Even if it is a variable, power of 0 is 1. Right, you need to keep this in mind. Now a negative exponent. So if your number is having a negative exponent, or if your variable is having a negative exponent, for example, let's say 5 to the power of negative 3, which means to solve this you need to write it in a fractional form. Always 1 goes up and the 5 cube comes down, right? So 5 to the power of negative 3 becomes 1 over 5 to the power of 3. Now definitely you need to solve this. So this will give you 5 5s are 25. 25 5s are going to give you 125. This doesn't mean 5 multiplied by 3. No, you have to be very careful about these exponents. Whenever you have something like this doesn't mean 5 multiplied by 3. No, it means 5 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 5, which will give you a 125. So this is how you need to remember the law of exponents. If it is a negative exponent, your answer will be in a fractional form. But if it is to the power of 0, any value to the power of 0 is going to be 1. If the bases are the same and you're multiplying, that means you will just add up the exponents. If the bases are the same, you're dividing, you will subtract the exponents. But rather, if they're in parentheses, you just multiply the exponents. Right, keeping this in mind, let's quickly solve these questions. Now, I would always prefer if you would pause the video here, solve by yourself, and then check the answer. That's so much better for you, right? So you can pause here and do the questions. Well, if you think you don't need to pause and you just want to watch the video, which is of anyhow no use, because without practice, you're not going to understand anything by watching. But if you have solved and then you're checking the answer, well and fine. So this one, as I just explained here, the exponent is a negative one. So definitely your answer is going to be a fraction. So this means 6 to the power of 2, that is to remove the negative. We are writing it as an inverse. So this is going to be 1 to the power of 36. 6 multiplied 6 is 36. Not 6 multiplied by 2 is 12 is wrong. 6 multiplied by 6 is 36. One more example, 2 to the power of negative 3. So definitely, because the exponent is a negative exponent, so your answer is going to be in fraction. So it's going to be like this. So this means it's going to be 1 over 8. 1, that means 2 to the power of 3. 2 multiplied by 2 is 4. 4 multiplied by 2 is 8. Doesn't mean 2 multiplied by 3 is 6. No, it's wrong. Here, why I gave you it, this both might look similar, but they're not, because this is a negative one and this is a positive one. So when you have positive exponents to solve, you do not write them as a fraction. Rather, you just find out what's the answer just by multiplying 2 3 times. So that gives you an 8. So there's a big difference between 1 over 8 and 8. So just because of this negative, small negative sign, there's a big difference in the answers. Just remember, if it's only a negative exponent, you write it as a fraction. If there is no negative exponents, you just find out the value of the number, right? Now, anything to the power of 0 is 1. Just now we discussed that anything to the power of 0 is 1. So here is 2 to the power of 0, 1, but here it's a variable. So a to the power of 0 is also 1. So any number or any variable to the power of 0 means 1. Right here, negative 4 to the power of negative 3. Now what does this mean? Both of them have negatives. So definitely your answer also must be a negative 1, because both of them are negatives. So we write it as a negative fraction, because it should be a fraction, because this is a negative exponent. Always negative exponents will be in negative fraction form. So this is going to be 4 to the power of 3, which means 4 multiplied by 4 multiplied by 4, which is going to give you a negative 4 fours are 16. 16 fours are going to give you 64, right? So this is going to be negative 1 over 64. That's because both of them have negatives. Your answer definitely must be in a negative form. Now, can you see that they are both having the same numbers and the base? Here the base is negative 4, here also the base is negative 4. Here the base is negative 3, here also the base is negative 3. But there's a difference. The parentheses make a big difference. Why is that? Now, definitely your answer is going to be a fraction, because there is negative 3 as the exponent. Whenever negative exponent, the answer is fraction. Now, this means you are multiplying negative 4 3 times. So your question must be written in this form, right? So because they are considering negative 4 as a whole, so negative 4 multiplied by negative 4 multiplied by negative 4. So this is going to give you negative 64, right? Because negative 4 multiplied by negative 4 will give you a positive 16, a plus 16. Then again, positive 16 multiplied by negative 4 is going to give you a negative 64. So that's how we got negative 1 over 64. Now, if you would have watched the explanation videos, I did give you a hint. If the base is inside the parenthesis and if the exponent is an odd number, then your answer will also be a negative one. Odd numbers means, now 1 definitely it's not going to be, so these are the odd numbers. We have 3, 5, 7, 9. So if 11, these are odd numbers, and the even numbers are 2, 4, 6, 8. Every other number is odd and every other number is even. So if 2 is even, 3 is odd, 4 is even, 5 is odd, 6 is even, 7 is odd. So that's a pattern we are following, right? So if the exponent is an odd number, your answer will always be in a negative form. But if the exponent was a negative number. So for example, if it was instead of negative 4 to the power of negative 2, now 2 is an even number. So your question must be written like this. Negative 4 multiplied by negative 4. So what is negative 4 multiplied by negative 4? That's going to give you a 16, positive 16. So your answer will be in this form. But whereas if it is an odd number, your answer will be with a negative sign. Right, so for the points to remember, these are the points you need to remember. If the exponent is negative, the answer will always be in a fractional form. Just now we had seen that. If the exponent is 0, the answer will always be 1. The value is going to be 1. If the base and the exponent both are in negative, the answer must always be in a negative fractional form. That is, if the base and the fraction and the exponent are both negatives, just like this question here which we solved, right? The answer will always be in a negative form. If the base is inside a pair of parentheses and is negative and the exponent is also negative, then there are two cases to be done. So we are referring to this question here. If the base is inside the parentheses and if the base is negative as well as the exponent is negative, if the exponent is odd number, the answer will be a positive fraction. So if the exponent is an odd number, the answer is going to be a positive fraction. And if the exponent is an even number, the answer is going to be, in fact, this should be changed. This has to be positive and this has to be negative. Okay, so sorry for that mistake. So if the exponent is an odd number, answer will be always in a negative form. Fraction, exponent is an even number, answer will always be in a positive fraction. Just now I had shown you how that will differ if the exponent is a negative fraction. If the exponent is an odd number and if the exponent is an even number and if the base is inside the parenthesis is also negative. Right, let's move on to simplifying. How are you going to simplify? This is one of the easiest part of exponents. All what you're going to do is to remove this negative 2. Now you know that b to the power of negative 2 is written as 1 over b to square, right? So the same thing we are following here. So to change this, we are just gonna flip the places, that's all. So a cube remains the same because a cube has no negative exponents. But b to the power of negative 2, what happens b to the power of negative 2 is it will come down, and then c to the power of negative 1 will move up and change the signs. Because this is negative, it goes up and becomes a positive one. This is negative up, so it comes down and becomes a negative one. Now keep in mind, we never write 1 as the exponent because it's not okay to write 1 as the exponent. So we leave the letter alone. So this is the simplified form of this exponential fraction. Exponent, this dividing in fact, right? Okay, let's move on with this. Now here we have 2. So 2 has nothing to do. We write 2 as it is. F to the power of 0 means the value of f to the power of 0 is going to be 1. So it's going to be 2 multiplied by 1. Now it's b to the power of negative 4, which means b goes down and becomes a positive 1. So b to the power of 4. And g to the power of negative 10 is goes up and it becomes a positive 1. Now here we have two numbers, 2 multiplied by 1. So 2 multiplied by 1 will give you a 2. G to the power of 10 over b to the power of 4. Just flip the places of the exponents which are negative. That's all is the idea of this part. So b to the power of 0 is going to be 1. C is C, it has nothing to do. So 1 multiplied by C in fact. Then H is negative here. So what happens? It needs to move up and become positive. So 1 multiplied by C is going to give you a C. We usually don't write 1, right? So it's going to be C H to the power of 8. This is how you need to solve exponents, simplify exponents. Now here, both of them have 0 power. So n to the power of 0 is going to be 1, and that multiplied by p to the power of 0 is also 1. So what's going to be the answer? 1. 1 multiplied 1 is 1. Let's move on to this part. So here again, 2 to the power of 0 is 1. Then what is p to the power of 1? It just stays the same. So 1 multiplied by p is going to give you a p to the power of 1. We don't write the power of 1. So the answer is going to be p. Right? Right. So these are the points to remember. Just switch the place of the negative exponents to make it positive. It means if it's up, switch it down. If it's down, switch it up and make it positive. And don't forget to solve any value. Value in the sense like these numbers. Don't forget to multiply or divide. For example, sometimes you might even get equations such like so. Okay, so when you are solving such simplifying, you just need to solve these numbers. So here it's going to be a half. So half g square, it comes like that. So when the numbers are there to divide or multiply, just do what's required. Right, so let's solve this. Evaluate k to the power of 0, m to the power of -3 for k is equal to -4 and m is equal to -2. So pause the video here, try to do the question out by yourself, and then you can check your answers. Well, if you have done that, let's check the answer. The question says k to the power of 0 and m to the power of -3. For k is -4. So simply replace the value which they have given for the numbers. So -4 to the power of 0 and m is -2. So this means multiply, right? You know that if two letters are together means they multiply. -2 to the power of -3. Now any number to the power of 0 is going to be 1, right? And multiplied by -2 to the power of -3. So -2, we put them inside the parentheses because it's written as a separate value. So it's better we put them inside the parentheses. So let's solve this. -2 to the power of -3. This means it's going to be in a fractional form, right? Write it straight. So this is going to be 1 over -2 multiplied by -2 multiplied by -2 because we are considering -2 as a whole number here. So -2 multiplied by -2 will give you a +4. Then +4 multiplied by -2 will give us a -8. So which means the answer for this is going to be 1 over 8, but with a negative sign. So 1 multiplied by -1 over 8. So what is 1 multiplied by -1 over 8? It's going to be -1 over 8. So this is how you evaluate expressions when the values are given to you. Hopefully you've got this answer right. If you have not, it's all right. You can try it again. Do it 2 times by yourself, and third time try to do it changing the number. So rather than giving a -4 here, make it a -5 and make this a -5 and -3 and then try it out. Let's move to the next one. Simplify. All variables represent non-negative numbers. All right, so, okay, here something is missing, isn't it? So let's keep this as half, or rather, let's keep it as a square. Okay, x to the power of half, y to the power y cube to the whole power of 2 and the square root of x squared. Right, what you're going to do here, you need to just multiply them. As you know, they're like parentheses, so you multiply. So half multiplied by 2 is going to give you, let me write this down, so it's going to be x, it's wrong. So this is going to be x to the power of 1, half multiplied by 2. Half of 2 is 1, but we don't write the 1, so avoid writing 1. Half, first solve this. Half multiplied by 2 is 1, so we don't write it. Next is y. 3 multiplied 2 is going to give us a 6. Now separate this with the multiplication sign. Always, if there is a parenthesis and square root or the cube, whatever the root is, multiply that with a multiplication sign. Now are you going to simplify this? Now this root itself means the power of 2, right? So whenever you see 2, that means this is divided by 2. So all what you are left with is an x. So now you're multiplying them. So x multiplied by x is going to give you an x square, right? Y to the power of 6. Why did we consider this as an x square? Before starting the lesson, I gave you the points to remember. If you're multiplying now exponents with the same base, means you will add the exponent. So here the exponent is 1, here the exponent is 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2. That's why we say x multiplied by x is x squared. We have nothing to do with the y, so we leave it the same. Let's try this out. This one again, a to the power of 2 and half, 4, b to the power of 4 multiplied by half. So 2 multiplied by half is going to give us a 1, because half of 2 is 1, so we don't write it. But what is 4 multiplied by half? Half of 4 is 2, right? So separate this with a multiplication sign. Now this just to consider this as a division sign. So 6 divided by 2 is 3 is going to give you a 2 as well. Now we need to further simplify this, right? So this is going to be a, and b squared multiplied by b squared is going to give you a b4. Just add the exponents because the bases are the same. So the answer, simplified answer, is going to be a b to the power of 4. Right, let's solve this. Now a, this means multiplied by 4, that a square multiplied by 4, so that's going to give you an 8. 2 multiplied 4 is 8. Then b, half multiplied by 4. So what is half of 4? Half of 4 is going to be square. Now again, I told you, consider this as a division sign. So if there is no number here, means this square itself, this root sign itself means a square. So 4 divided by 2 is going to give you a 2. Now can we leave this like that? No, because we are going to divide these. Remember what was the rule for dividing exponents? If the bases are same, just subtract the exponents. So it's going to be a 8 and b 2 minus 2, right? Because we are dividing b square divided by b square. So this is going to give us a to the power of 0 and b to the power, a to the power of 8 and b to the power of 0, because 2 minus 2 is 0. Now what's the value of b to the power of 0? It's going to be 1. So the answer for this is going to be a to the power of 8, because anything you multiply with 1, the answer is going to be the same. So the answer for this equation, this exponential form, is going to be a to the power of 8. Okay, so let's move to the other thing. Simplify each expression. Right, so pause the video here and try to do it by yourself, so that if you think you don't know anything, you can simply just go through those points again. Now, if you have done it by yourself, let's check how to do this. Now, I just need to rewrite this in a form. How am I going to rewrite this? I am going to draw the square root. Okay, I cannot draw it so neatly, but so the square root, put this base inside. Okay, and can you see this denominator? Write it out here. Okay, now I would not recommend you to write the square here, but other than square, if it was any other number, you need to write. But squares we don't write, because this root itself means square. Now this whole thing, you put it inside the parenthesis and multiply it with the numerator. So divide it with the denominator and multiply that with the numerator. Right, so what's going to be the square root of 16? The square root of 16 is 4. So 4, you know what is square root, right? Like 16, what gives 2 times, which number multiplied 2 times gives you 16? That's 4. So 4 to the power of 3. So 4 multiplied by 4 is 16. 16 multiplied by 4 is going to give you a 64. This is how you need to simplify these expressions. So whenever you see anything like this, just rewrite it first. So let's rewrite this question again. So what do? Put it inside the square root and write it as 32. Write the base as 32. Then which number are you going to write here? You're going to write the denominator, 5. Put it inside the parenthesis and then write the numerator outside, which means you will divide by the new denominator and multiply by the numerator. Right, what's going to be the fifth root of 32? Means which number multiplied 5 times is going to give you 32? That is going to be a 2, because 2 to the power of 5 gives you 32, and 3. Now, if you ask me how can you find, just because it's your it's your base, it's the first time you're doing this, so write something like this because it needs to be 5 times. So draw 5 and put the multiplication signs in between. Now, always start with 2 because you can get 2. Or the best thing to do is do prime factorization, right? So if you do the prime factorization also, you will find the answer. Let me show you how. So just write 32 first. So you can say 4 8s give you 32, right? Then again you can divide 2 by 2, and this will give you 2 4, and again you will divide 4 into 2, so 2 2 2 2 2, which means 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 gives you a 32. So instead of writing 2 5 times, we can say 2 to the power of 5 equals 32. So the fifth root of 32 is going to be 2. So this is going to be 2 to the power of 3, which means 2 multiplied by 2, 4. 4 multiplied by 2 is 8. So if you simplify this, you will get 8 as the answer. Right, let's rewrite this in question now. 27 1/3 power. So we draw the root sign, we put the cube here, 27, and we write 1. Okay, you might think it's not important, right? It's not important, but then no, I don't want to confuse you. I'm just showing you how to rewrite this question. So what's going to be the cube root of 27? Again, as I said, you can do prime factorization. What gives you 27? 3 9. So which means 3 3. So 1 2 3. 3 times 3 to the power of 3 gives you 27. Right, so any number to the power of 1, what's the answer going to be? It's going to be 3. That's why it is not important to write 1 here when the numerator has a 1. When there is a numerator of 1, you don't need to write the 1. You simply can write just the denominator as the root and find out the answer. Right, so let's move on. Okay, at a factory that makes cylindrical cans, the formula R equals V divided by 12 to the half power is used to find the radius of a can with volume V. What is the radius of a can whose volume is 192 centimeter cube? So the equation given to us is R equals V divided by 12 to the half power. Right, so let's substitute the value of V, the volume, right? So volume is given to be 192 divided by 12 to the half power. So first let's solve the one inside the parenthesis. How much is 192 divided by 12? That's going to give you a, how much? 18. Is it 18? 192 divided by 12 is going to give you 6. So it's a 16. Right, so it's going to be 16 to the 1/2 power. Okay, now how are you going to rewrite this question? You need to rewrite it with a square root. Okay, now as I told you, if the numerator is 1, you don't need to put them inside parentheses because apparently the answer you're going to get is going to be the same. So what is going to be the square root of 16? Which number multiplied 2 times gives you 16? It's a 4. So the radius is going to be 4. This is how easy it is when they have given this kind of a problem solving, but then you don't need to worry. You just need to replace the value and then go on solving it. If you know the ways to solve, that's going to be an easy one. Right. The next one is find the degree of the polynomial. Okay. Now, what is the degree? The value of these exponents are called as the degree. So these are called as terms. Each term is separated by the sign, by the plus sign or the minus sign. So here, this is called a term. So the degree, the value of the degree for this is the value of the exponent. So here the degree value is going to be 7. And here for this term, the degree value is going to be 3. Now, how do you find the degree of the polynomial? You choose the degree which has the, you choose the term which has the highest degree. So which is the highest degree here? It's 7. So you have to write the degree of the highest polynomial is 7. This is how you find the degrees of each polynomial, right? So the degree here is going to be 7. Right, for the next one, now this is a term. There are how many terms here? 1, 2, 3, and a 4. Right, so here the degree for this is going to be 5 because there are 2 exponents. Here the degree is also going to be 5, and here the degree is going to be -4, right? And then here there is no degree because there is no exponent here. Okay, now how do you find the highest degree here? So here there are 2 degrees which are 5. So that doesn't matter. We just need the highest degree. So the degree for this polynomial is going to be 5. Doesn't matter. Maybe there are 3 terms with the same degrees. Doesn't matter. But we need to choose the degree which is the highest. So here there are 2 5s and that is the highest. So we write degree as 5. Okay, now write the polynomial in standard form. How do you find write the polynomial in standard form? You need to find the degree of each of them and then arrange it from the greatest to the least degree. So here the degree is going to be 1 because only there is 1 here. Here the degree is going to be 5. Here the degree is going to be 2 and here it is going to be 0, right? Because there are no exponents here. Okay, now let's arrange them from the highest degree to the lowest. So the highest degree is this. That means it's going to be -7x to the power of 5. Then which is the next highest degree? This one. So plus 4x squared. Then comes 6x, which is plus 6x. And then plus 9. So always remember when you're writing the polynomial in standard form, you have to find the degree of each term, okay, and then arrange from the greatest degree to the least. Arrange from greatest to the least degree. Okay, so hope you have understood that. It's an easy thing to do, so it doesn't need much explanation. Right, now this is how you classify polynomials. This chart is very important, right? So here, if depending on the degree, if the degree is 0, you name it as constant. If it is 1, linear. Now I'm not going to read the whole table. You are aware of the table. So classify the polynomial according to its degree and number of terms. So first, let's find out what is the highest degree here. As you can see, the highest degree is going to be 2. So let's write it down here. The degree is okay, so degree is the highest degree is 2. But how many terms do we have here? Here we have 1, 2, and 3 terms. So the degree is 2 and the terms are 3. So according to the degree, we choose the name that is quadratic. And according to the number of terms, there are 3 terms, which means it's a trinomial. So this is going to be called as a quadratic trinomial because the highest degree is 2 and there are 3 terms. What if you have the highest degree as 4 and 2 terms? So if the highest degree is 4, you call it a quartic, and if there are 2 terms, You call it as a quartic binomial. So that's an easy one if you memorize this table. So let's move on with the next part. Don't know it's empty. Okay. Now we are coming to adding and subtracting these polynomials. Okay. Now when you're adding or subtracting, you consider them the same way when we add or subtract numbers, but then yes, there are some terms which we need to follow. That's all. Okay, now this is 4n squared plus 5 plus n squared minus n plus 6. Now, if you could, you can simply add them here itself. But what I would uh, suggest you is write it in the vertical form, because when you write it in the vertical form, we know which polynomial goes under which place. So I'll just write the longest polynomial first. So that's like m squared minus m plus 6. Okay. Now the next one is 4n squared. So I know that 4n squared will go under the n squared, right? Because that's how we add or subtract numbers, the place values. From the childhood, we have been learning about place values. So then the next one is a plus 5. So we know that plus 5 will go here. It will definitely not come here because this is the place for the m term. So we are not going to write anything there. We leave that empty and then we write 5 under the number place. Right, so let's add them. Add means here it's going to be 1. If there is no number means it's going to be 1. So 4 plus 1 will give us 5m squared. Why is it a 5m squared? Because we do not add the exponents when we are adding or subtracting polynomials. We do not touch or do anything for the exponents when we are adding or subtracting polynomials. Then the next one is minus m, because there is nothing under m, so it's considered as a 0, right? So 6 plus 15 is 6 plus 5 is going to give us an 11. So the answer for this polynomial is going to be 5n squared minus m plus 11. Now it's perfectly well and fine if you could just add them. 4n squared plus n squared is 5n squared. Then there's nothing to do with m, and 5 plus 6 is 11. It's totally up to you if you could do it the horizontal way, but what I would advise you is do it the vertical way so that you know which term goes, which monomial goes under each other, right? Now this is a subtraction question. Now for subtraction questions, you have to be, yes, a bit careful, because can you say this negative sign? This negative sign has to be given to each of the number which is inside. So which means simply there is a 1 here. Negative alone means there is a 1. So we need to multiply the negative 1 with each term inside the parenthesis. So what is the result of that? Negative 1 multiplied by x squared is going to give you a negative x squared. Negative 1 multiplied by negative 9 is going to give you a positive 9, because negative multiplied by negative gives you a positive 1. So in fact, the question for you is going to be 10x squared minus 3x plus 7. And then here it is minus x squared. So you know now well where it goes under. It's going to be plus 9. Okay, so the next thing is simply draw the line and do it. Negative 10 and negative 1 is going to give you, here it's 1. You know that there is no number means it's a 1. So this is going to give you a negative 11x squared minus 3x plus 16. So this is how we're going to solve adding or subtracting of polynomials. Isn't it easy when you write it in the vertical way? It's much more easier and clear rather than keeping it the horizontal way and complicating yourself. Okay, this rule is important when you're subtracting. You must multiply each term which is inside. But you don't need to worry if they give you the question like this itself. You don't need to worry. Okay, let's go to this question. Now this is for multiplying. Now you're going to multiply these monomials, right? So first multiply the numbers. So minus 5 multiplied by 4 will give you a negative 20. Then m multiplied by n square is going to give you an n cube. N cube multiplied by n to the power of 5 is going to give you a 5, because remember If the bases are same, you are just going to add the exponents. That's the rule here. Okay, but if the bases are different, that's a different case. But if the bases are same, just add the exponents. That's all. Okay, let's go to this. Now there are two terms inside the parenthesis, which means you will multiply this first with 2s and again this with negative 3t squared. So first multiply the numbers, that is going to give you a 10. 5 multiplied 2 is 10. S square multiplied by s is going to give you an x cube because the power here is 1, but we don't write the 1. So 2 plus 1 is 3. There's nothing to do with the t. So what you're going to do, just leave the t cube by itself. Okay, put the negative sign because 5 multiplied by negative 3 is going to give you a negative 15. Now s square, nothing is there to multiply with the s square, so write s square. Okay, then t to the power of 3 multiplied by t to the power of 2. So that's going to give you t to the power of 5 because you're just going to add them. 3 plus 2 is going to give you a 5. Okay, so the answer for this is going to be 10s cubed t cubed minus 15s square t to the power of 5. Okay, so let's move. The next question is x minus 5 multiplied by x squared plus x plus 1. Okay, so again here also I would rather prefer to use the vertical method rather than keeping and confusing myself here. So always start by writing the longest polynomial first, x squared plus x plus 1, and multiply by x minus 5. Now you just multiply it the same way which you would do when you're multiplying a bigger digit number. What's the first thing you're going to do here? You're going to multiply 3 with 326. So the same thing we're going to do here, we are going to multiply negative 5 with this whole polynomial, which is up. I will write that separately so that also will not confuse me rather than multiplying it here. If you can multiply it directly in the same place, do go ahead and do it. Okay, so I wrote it. First, we are going to multiply negative 5 with this whole thing, which is up. So negative 5 multiplied by x squared is going to give me a negative 5x squared. Negative 5 multiplied by positive x is again going to give me a negative 5x. Negative 5 multiplied by positive 1 is going to give me a negative 5. So let me write this down. Negative 5x squared, negative 5x, and negative 5. Okay, now in a normal question, you have multiplied this number with the first whole thing up. What's the next thing we are going to do? We always add a 0 there. So the same thing we are going to do, just add a 0. Okay, put plus sign and add the 0. Next thing, we are going to multiply this whole term with x. So x multiplied by x squared plus x plus 1. Same thing. In numbers, we multiply 326 by 2 to the next step. So the same thing we are doing here. Only that we are dealing with numbers now, with variables. So x multiplied by x squared is going to give you an x cube. X multiplied by x is going to give you an x squared. X multiplied by 1 is going to give you an x. 1x, but we don't write the 1. Okay, so let me write them under the correct place values now. So I have an x, that's a plus x square and an x cube. Now you don't need to worry that there is no cube here. It's all right. It's perfect not to have the same terms. Okay, but write it separately so that when you are adding them, finally you will not find any difficulties in adding the correct numbers. So start adding from here or here, it doesn't matter because you're not going to carry to the other side. If it was numbers, yes, we need to start from here. Here we're not carrying any numbers to the next place value. So up to you, wherever you want to start from. So this can be x cubed minus 5 plus 1. How much is minus 5 plus 1? You're going to get a negative 4x squared. Then minus 5 plus 1. Minus 5x plus x. So that's again going to give you a negative 4x minus 5 plus 0. That's going to give you a negative 5. So your answer is x cubed minus 4x squared minus 4x minus 5. Yes, it looks a bit lengthy, but if you would have practiced perfectly, you will get the answer correct. Let's move on to the special products of binomials. Now, these formulas you need to memorize. Or if you don't memorize, you will face a big difficulty in multiplying these numbers. Right, so if it was in this form, a plus b whole square, you are going to write it as a square plus 2ab plus b square. If it was minus, the same, only the middle sign will be changed. And if it was a plus b, a minus b, you're going to just write it in this form, a square minus b square. So let's go ahead. If you can do, just pause the video here, do it by yourself and then check the answer. So this is in the form a plus b whole square. So let me name this as a and let me name this as b. Now sometimes they do use x plus y the whole square also, but for you it's a plus b the whole square. So this is a and this is b. So what's the form we have to use when we're having a plus b whole square? A square, which means 4x square plus 2ab means 4x multiplied by 3y plus b square. So b square here is 3y the whole square. Okay, that's because it's in the question. It's in the formula. So what is 4x square going to be? 4 square is going to be 16x square. 2 multiplied 4x is 8x. 8x multiplied by 3y is going to be 24xy. Right? You multiply the numbers. 2 4s are 8, 8 3s are 24, then x multiply y is xy. Plus 3 square is going to be 9, right? And then y square. So this is going to be your answer, 16x squared plus 24xy plus 9y squared. Right, let's check this one. Now again, it's going to be the same, only instead of plus here, it's going to be minus. So this is going to be 4m squared minus 2ab and plus b square, which means it's a 10 square. So 4 square, the 4 square is going to be 16, then m squared is n square, minus, multiply the numbers, 2 4s are 8, 8 10s are 80, and then only we have an m here because there is no number, no variable here. Then 10 square is going to be 100. So this is going to be your answer for this question. Now really do not bother if there is a minus or a plus sign here. This is only related to the formula. But the formula says minus 2ab plus b, just follow what the formula says. Okay, you don't think that there is minus, then don't go to do that. Okay, so the next one here, this is in which form is it now? This is in the form a plus b, a minus b. So we are going to use this formula of a square minus b square. So we just need to write that down, a square minus b square. So which is going to be a? This is going to be a and this is going to be b. That's not normal, right? So a square means it's already a b square, which means minus b is 8q. It's going to be 8q square. Okay, now p square, that means you're just going to multiply them, right? So 2 2s are 4. Then here, 8 square means it's going to be 64q square. So this is how you need to solve. Now, if you would have memorized these formulas, definitely the remaining parts are going to be easy. So this was all for your whole of chapter 1. Hopefully you found this video useful because these are the very important questions, and definitely in a quiz or an exam, you can expect these questions. Anyhow, one of them will be there for you. So if you find this video useful, do like the video and comment and let me know how many of you got the answers right here, because we have done many questions. So I've also told you the important stuff, important parts in this lesson. So till we meet again in another video, keep practicing.